I'm going to show you two very simple ways to create clouds. Now for this I'm using a round-headed paintbrush. I've got my little water pot here and I'm going to pick just a couple of bright blues. It really doesn't matter which ones. I'm just running my brush down through the blues. I want a good base on here, so a little bit of water, not even bothering to go to my palette tray first, and I'm going to start sweeping across here. Ooh, that's bright. Lovely, lovely. And again, coming all the way down. Now as I come down, I want my watercolors to fade out a little bit towards the bottom. Now all I'm going to do now is go in with a paper towel. So I'm just gently kind of scrunching it up a little. And I'm going to lift. I'm going to lift where I want my clouds to be. So I'm thinking random. Nice random upper edge to my cloud. Like that. And just very gently lifting away where I would like my clouds to appear. So I'm kind of twisting and turning the paper towel as I go down. Now I'm actually going to do a little bit of a cloud coming down from above as well. So here I go again, just lifting, twisting. I don't want to hit the paper from the same angle over and over again, or I'm going to end up with a very repetitive pattern. Again, just bring it down into the sky a little bit. I'm looking at the negative space. Negative space is the blue sky in here. And I want a random pattern. I don't want like a very solid rectangle in there. I just want a random little pattern going on. I don't want people to look in my work and think, oh, I see a such and such in there. It's actually pretty difficult to be random. So there we have, I'm not even kidding, super, super rapid, fast clouds. That is one way to get your clouds in there. Now let's just add a little bit of a ground here as well. So I've taken a little bit of a lighter green and a tiny bit of like an ochre to make it more natural, and let's just kind of sweep down through here. And we've got ourselves a little bit of a grassy hill. I want it to be tiny bit darker on one side where my more powerful sky is over there. And that's got work to do by itself. I'm going to just leave it and let it bleed out. Now I've just put green on my brush. Let me clean it off. Lovely. Dab on my paper towel. Now this is a much more controlled method for doing clouds. I've got to be consciously aware of where the very tip of my paintbrush is going at all times, because I'm going to start sketching in some super, super bright clouds. So I'm going to pick up again just a few different blues. Now I want the tip of my paintbrush to be facing where the cloud is going to go, and I want just a very delicate random edge going around where my cloud will be. And I'm going to start scooshing that blue out and away. Now I can always kind of come back in and just push the color into the white of the cloud to get a very fluffy looking upper edge. And then as I come away, I'm scooshing that blue out. You don't really want to see any harsh lines in your sky there. So you can see where I've got a very deliberate cloud forming that I've had absolute control over. Now my color is getting softer as I come down, as I'm running out of paint. It's totally fine. Now let's just kind of scoosh this over here and work on another cloud. So again, I need just a tiny bit more blue on my brush, and again, tip of the brush facing where the cloud is going to go. Oop, you can see my brush is a little too dry there. A little bit more blue. And let's get another random edge cloud coming in from the side. Again, I can play with the very edge of the cloud, make it look fluffier, make it look smoother. But when I'm done, I want to scoosh this blue out into the sky again. There we go. Have them gently coming together. Alright, so that watercolor is going to do its thing there and gently blend out. I'm going to smooth that down. And I want to get some layering, a little bit of layering going on in my clouds as well. So I want a slightly cooler blue this time. I'm going to drop to a little bit of Payne's Grey over here. And this time I am going to take it to my palette. Actually, I have a color that I was using earlier. Lovely. This is a bit of Payne's Grey mixed with a slightly brighter blue. So let's just use that again. Now this time my brush is facing down because I've got another cloud in front of this one. So this one is going to be, I'm facing the upper edge of the cloud. Getting again a nice random edge. If I start to see something forming, I'll change the shape. If I start to see Mickey Mouse ears or something like that, I'm like, oop, nope, don't want that. Nice random edge again. And this time I want it to fade gently out into the cloud above. So I'm getting a little bit of texture, a little bit of depth going on here. I want it to be light, so I'm using my brush to lift up quite a bit of that color as well to get a nice soft finish. I'm going to add a tiny little bit of a brighter blue in here as well, just to match the sky. And again, kind of blurring it out. Very nice. And I want to add a little bit of a bottom on this cloud as well. So going back into those brighter blues, following around there. This time it's going to be a little bit lighter at the bottom. Again, I've got lots of control over where my brush is going. So I am molding the shape of this cloud right now. Again, a little bit of water just to soften that out. Back into the sky. I know my paint is only going to go where I've put the water though, so it's not going to go in and start messing with the shape of my cloud because that's dry. I haven't added anything to the shape of my cloud. I can continue to mess with the edge of the cloud like I'm going to here. I want it to be soft down at the bottom, so I'm going to kind of blur this edge out a little bit down here. Again, anytime I start to see solid shapes appearing, that's when I go in and really change the contour, the outside edge, so you don't start to see things appearing in my clouds. Now again, this one's really brilliant. That one's a little more blended out. So again, I want to add a little bit of color on the inside here. So I'm going to use a bit of this Payne's Grey and some blue. I'm going to take it up from the bottom actually. This is a quick study here. Turning this into a bit of a storm cloud. There we go. Again, just let the colors bleed out. Part of the battle with watercolors is having the confidence to just let it go and do its own thing. Now my sky faded a little bit up here, so what I want to do is pick up some brilliant blues again. I'm going to work back in here and give myself a super bright sky, a really nice bright corner up there. Now there's something about this edge of the cloud that's really bugging me here, so what I want to do is just go back in with my brush. I'm going to chisel in and just make a very random shape in there using the tip of my paintbrush. So I've got absolute control over where my paint goes, what it's doing. Unlike with blotting where you're not quite sure where it's going, but you know you're going to lift an area, these clouds are extremely powerful. It's the white of the paper, really, really brilliant. And let's just do a little bit more on this one. This is extremely bright up here. I want to gently just haze the outside edge of it. So this time I'm actually going to let that sky bleed onto the cloud a little bit. I didn't pick up any more color. In fact, I'm taking it off my brush. I'm just using what's bled out from the sky to give it a slightly hazy edge. Now remember, when you're practicing, little case studies like this are fantastic. You don't want to jump into a planned masterpiece and then start to get really frustrated when it's not going your way. Little case studies like this are absolutely invaluable when it comes to learning what these materials are capable of doing before you start diving into your large-scale masterpieces. It takes time to really learn what they can do, or what you can do. You're the one that's in control of the material. So there we go. We've got two very simple but different cloud studies there. So the one on the left, all I merely did was blot with a paper towel. Now I can always go back in and adjust this to lift areas, lighten it up. I can use a clean brush here, go back in and start chiseling away at areas, getting them a little bit brighter. So I'm exposing more of the white of the paper there going through. And that's also making my cloud look a little bit fuller as well. So I'm not adding any paint. You can see where I'm actually going in, chiseling my brush back and forth, and I'm depositing what was on the surface onto the paper towel here. And you can see how it's giving me a little bit more of a solid edge. Now I can do that same technique down inside the cloud, pushing this blue up, and that's going to create like a layered effect. Same as what we were doing down here, but just a little bit more of a layered effect going on. So it looks like I've got clouds overlapping one another. So again, just a little bit of water to help me lift. Now with watercolors, you can go back in at any time, add a little bit of water, loosen it up, and away you go. You can move it around again. You have to be aware of the paper though. The more you wet the paper, the more you weaken it. I have seen very, very keen artists moving things around to the extent that they're putting holes in their paper. So always be aware of what you are doing. Sometimes you may need to let it dry, let the paper strengthen up again, and then come back to it and rework it later. Cycle to a new area of your work and give it a chance to dry. So here you can see I'm really lifting a patch here. Lovely. So every cloud has a silver lining. This is me adjusting my silver linings here. Now if you compare the cloud at the bottom here compared to the cloud at the top, you can see kind of the texture of the paper towel through there. And here I've smoothed it out and got a very soft bit of layering going in there. Now I think I prefer this smoother edge. So again, I'm going to tip of my paintbrush facing the outer edge. I'm going to create a bit of a brighter cloud on the inside here. So you can see where I'm lifting. Nothing on my brush. Tiny bit of water. I do not want to saturate this paper with water. Got a paper towel on hand to deposit the paint onto that I'm lifting. And that's a very, very solid edge on my cloud. So I want to just soften it a little bit. Like so. I'm going to drag this cloud all the way out to the side. Again, just showing you how easy it is to lift. It can take a little bit of time depending on how much paint you've got on the surface and what sort of look you're going for. I can always go back into here and add more paint. If I feel like I've lifted too much and now I've got some big gaping holes in my sky, it's not a problem. Let it dry. Go back in. Or in a lot of cases you don't even need to let it dry. If you're adding more and you want that wet on wet, very soft bled out look to your clouds, then you don't need to wait. One of the most important things to remember with watercolor, you are not stuck with what you've done. You can always rework it. All you need to do is have patience to play around with the material, troubleshoot, and just see what it's capable of. There we are. So we've got our very gently lifted with a paper towel technique over here, which I went in and just lifted a little bit more with my brush to soften it. Remember, with the paper towel it left a little bit of a rough texture, as opposed to actually sketching in the cloud using the paintbrush, tip of the brush facing the outside edge of the cloud, giving a very deliberate edge. If you know exactly where you want your clouds to go and what shapes you want them to be, perhaps this is the way. And if you look at the two, This also has a much softer look to it. This is very, very dramatic. If you were going for some kind of a seascape where you wanted to build drama, you wanted to give the look of very strong contrasting colors and clouds that bounce right out, then this is probably the better technique for that. Whereas if you want just a second, that's just an afterthought, your sky is pushed far back and you're going to have something brilliant in the foreground and you don't want your sky to take away too much attention for it, then perhaps this is the sky that you should go for. But have a play around, just use some watercolor paper, tape it down and just play. Keep working on different techniques, throw in some different colors and see what you can come up with.